And away we go. Episode 1089 of the Galdi podcast. It is Friday, June 6, 2025. And no, it is not time to panic about Terry McLaurin. Yes, I saw the report on Thursday. No, I am not panicking. You should not be either. Fox Sports NFL insider Jordan Schultz, he had a post on X on Thursday at noon, wrote the following, quote, "Sources, Commanders All-Pro, WR, Terry McLaurin has made it clear to the team that he's frustrated with the lack of progress on a long-term deal. As I previously reported, McLaurin unexpectedly left voluntary workouts after initially attending, and it remains to be seen whether he'll report for mandatory minicamp. McLaurin is entering the final year of his contract. Talks have been minimal," end quote. Now, was that report good news? No. Was that report something that I was happy to read? No. But I fully expect the Commanders to sign Terry McLaurin to a contract extension this offseason. There are too many reasons for a deal to get done and too few reasons for a deal not to get done. I will say this about that report. Whoever leaked that intel to Jordan Schultz is not helping, okay? And if the leaker was Terry McLaurin's agent, as many are suspecting, shame on the agent. I don't think for a second that McLaurin himself is the leaker, but the agent absolutely could be the leaker. If the agent is the leaker, shame on the agent. You are not helping the situation. More on the situation in moments. Hello and welcome to this Friday installment of the Galdi podcast. Next segment, a conversation with ESPN NFL senior writer and prognosticator Mike Clay, who has the Commanders' Jayden Daniels as the number one fantasy football quarterback in the NFL for this coming season. JD5 is QB1, not just on his team, but in all of the NFL in fantasy football per Mike Clay. So we'll talk about that and much more with the Commanders, including Mike's outlook for the team in the 2025 season, why Mike is bullish on receiver Deebo Samuel Sr., and why Mike, for a second consecutive year, has the Commanders as having the number one off-ball linebacker unit in the NFL. All of that and more with ESPN's Mike Clay next segment. And also on the show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats, they on Thursday evening got ripped by the Chicago Cubs 7-1 at Nationals Park to lose 2 out of 3 games in the series. The O's, they on Thursday won again, a 6th consecutive win, a 9th win in 11 games, a 4-3 win at the Seattle Mariners to complete a 3-game sweep. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from Redskins fan on Terry McLaurin, who so far has been a no-show at the team's 2 OTA practices that have been open to the media this offseason. The 2 other notable absentees have been left tackle Laramie Tunsil and cornerback Marshawn Lattimore. McLaurin is in the midst of contract extension talks with the team. Writes Redskins fan, "Hey Al, hope you're doing well. On Terry's contract, why do you think it's taking so long? With teams doing this for a while, you'd think that they would have these things down to a science. If you sign players in advance, they get bigger money short-term, and the team saves long-term. Players don't get cheaper as time goes on. He is a great player and a great organization guy. I mean, what is the team doing? We bring in 2 money-hungry players in Deebo and Tunsil, and we're fooling around with a classy guy in Terry. And players who aren't coming to practice are hurting the team, in my opinion. I don't know about you, but when I'm at work, I watch others and see of ways that I can do my job better and try to help others do their jobs better. Stuff like that could make the difference in winning. Like they talk about the offensive linemen having to gel. If I made the type of money these players make, you would have to make me go home. I make way less, but I want to be the best at what I do. I'll keep listening. Thanks for the content. Well, thank you for the email, Redskins fan. So here are the dates of notable big money contract extensions announced by Washington in recent years. Edge defender Ryan Kerrigan, July 29th, 2015. Left tackle Trent Williams, August 30th, 2015. Tight end Jordan Reed, May 5th, 2016. Right tackle Morgan Moses, April 27th, 2017. Interior defensive lineman Jonathan Allen, July 27th, 2021. Receiver Terry McLaurin, July 5th, 2022. Interior defensive lineman Daron Payne, March 13th, 2023, though he had been franchise tagged the previous month, so his situation was a little different. But the point is that when big money contract extensions get done is all over the place. And in the cases of Ryan Kerrigan and Trent Williams and John Allen and Terry McLaurin, the last time that he was negotiating a contract extension. The deals did not get done until well beyond where we are now. There is no good reason for a contract extension with Terry McLaurin not to get done this offseason. He is a great player. He is a durable player. He's an outstanding teammate. We these days hear a lot about what it means to be a commander, and I'm sure that some of you gag when you hear that. But we these days hear, especially from General Manager Adam Peters and head coach Dan Quinn, about what it means to be a commander. Well, Terry McLaurin is the epitome of that. I would be surprised and disappointed if a contract extension with him did not get done this offseason. McLaurin is entering the final season of the contract extension that he signed in July 2022. Here was NFL insider Albert Breer of the MMQB on the Breer Report on YouTube on Wednesday, talking about the Terry McLaurin contract situation.
Will this be done before the mandatory minicamp? I think that's a moving target. But I do think that something gets done before the start of training camp. I just think he's too important to the program there. He's too important to what they've built for them to mess around on this one. This is not the guy that you go to war with over a few dollars. It's not an easy contract by any measure. He is a little bit older. And he is on a third contract. So those can, by definition, be a little trickier. But when you're talking about the culture that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters were able to build in their first year, Terry McLaurin is really central to all of it. So then the question becomes, how do you build a contract for him? And again, this is a guy who he hasn't been a 1,500 or 1,600 yard guy, but he's been consistently in that 1,100 yard range over the last few years. He's come up huge in big spots. He had 13 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, Terry McLaurin's 13 touchdown receptions in the 2024 regular season, a franchise record for touchdown receptions in a regular season. As far as the OTA no-shows go, as I discussed on Thursday's show, episode 1088, my biggest problem is with the Marshawn Lattimore no-show. McLaurin is in the midst of contract extension talks and is the last guy who you have to worry about in terms of attitude or preparation. Tunsil and Marshawn Lattimore traditionally do not attend most or even any of their team's OTA practices, which of course are voluntary. Per what has been reported and what the team has put out, McLaurin and Tunsil have been in attendance at other parts of the Commanders' offseason program, which got going on April 22nd. But Lattimore, per what defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. said during his pre-practice press conference on Wednesday morning, apparently has not been in attendance for any of the Commanders' offseason program. Tunsil is coming off another high-level season. Lattimore is coming off an injury-plagued and disappointing season, certainly in terms of his time with the Commanders. Forget about, learning the defense and bonding with teammates and all of that. How about just getting a handle on his health? Lattimore, of being acquired by the Commanders via trade last November 5th, what was 2024 NFL trade deadline day, was with the team for a total of 11 games, 8 regular season games, 3 postseason games. He, due to a troublesome hamstring, played in just 5 of those games, 2 regular season games and 3 postseason games, and the play was not good enough. Lattimore came to the Commanders having played in just 24 of a possible 43 regular season games since the start of the 2022 season. The guy has a significant injury history. It would be nice if the team could monitor him and see where he's at with his health and make sure that he's going about things in the best possible way. There's also this. There aren't many of these offseason practices. Commanders' OTA practices this offseason are on May 28th, May 30th, June 3rd, June 4th, and June 6th. And then there's the team's mandatory minicamp, which is next week, June 10th through the 12th. And that is it. Yes, the OTA practices are voluntary. Only the minicamp is mandatory, but it's not some big ask to ask players to attend these OTA practices. I mean, the first day of the Commanders' offseason was January 27th. The first OTA practice wasn't until May 28th. And there are only a total of 5 OTA practices for the team this offseason. Wanting guys to attend these OTA practices is not asking these guys to donate their kidneys, especially considering that these OTA practices are non-padded, non-contact practices. I don't get all worked up over no-shows at OTA practices, but, I mean, when you really look at it, it's not some big request to want players to attend these OTA practices. Hey, big weekend coming up on Prize Picks. So we have Game 2 of the finals on Sunday night, Indiana at Oklahoma City, Sunday night at 8. We have Washington and Baltimore, each with a 3-game series this weekend. And Prize Picks is offering free cash to listeners of this podcast. Download the app and use the promo code Galdi, my last name, Galdi. You do that, you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Yeah, you get $50 instantly when you play $5. Prize Picks Pick'em is available in Virginia and Washington, D.C. You just pick more or less on players in various statistical categories. And Prize Picks Streak has arrived in Maryland. You make a free daily pick. Just choose more or less on one featured player projection each day and build your streak by winning for 2 or more days. Each correct pick grows your streak. All of this on Prize Picks, which is great for basketball, baseball, and hockey. Heck, you on Prize Picks can mix and match player projections from different sports. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Prize Picks is the best daily fantasy sports app, and Prize Picks has a special deal for listeners of the Al Galdi podcast. Download the app, use the promo code Galdi, my last name, Galdi. You do that, you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Yes, $50 instantly when you play $5. Prize Picks is awesome. I've used it. It's a ton of fun. It's easy to use. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your opinions into real money on Prize Picks and take advantage of what Prize Picks is offering to listeners of the Al Galdi podcast. Download the app, use the promo code Galdi, and you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Yo, it's D-Lo. I'm partnering with Ro. Women, y'all feel that? It's sexy. But if you're stressing about your performance, it throws you off. That's why I rock with Ro Sparks. Ro Sparks dissolve under your tongue and hit fast so you're ready when the moment pops off. You feel like a superhero. It's satisfying your partner. That's key. Ro Sparks help you last longer, stay fuller, and keep the whole vibe right. With Prescribe, new patients get $15 off their first order. Hit up ro.co/backyard and to see if Ro Sparks are right for you. That's ro.co/backyard and see if Ro Sparks are right for you.
Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved. Do not undergo FDA safety effectiveness or manufacturing review. For full safety information, go to ro.co/safety-info.
Learning a new language opens the door to new friends, new cultures, and maybe even a whole new life. So why not start the journey today? There's over a dozen languages available to learn at your own pace so you can achieve your goals with material tailored to your individual proficiency level, interests, and time availability. I'm finally learning French after taking classes in high school and thrilled to finish what I'd started years ago. And my favorite part about Babbel is that it's dialogue-based. It helps me to actually practice conversations, and the speech recognition ensures I'm saying words, correct them all. So get talking with Babbel. I want you to learn another language, so I'm teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/bluewire. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/bluewire, spelled BABBEL.com/bluewire. Babbel.com/bluewire. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hey, if you happen to be listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can write a review of the podcast saying that you like it. The review can be just a sentence or two, but the reviews help out the podcast a lot. Thank you for doing them. Commanders quarterback Jayden Daniels, an all-time great rookie season last season. Will he this coming season be even better? Consider this from ESPN NFL analyst Booger McFarland and ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter on ESPN's NFL Live this past Wednesday afternoon.
In the NFL and football in general, there's an old saying that you make your biggest jump from year 1 to year 2 as far as the speed of the game slows down, as far as your ability to know what to expect, how to expect it, when to expect it. And we're talking about him after his rookie year. Think about that, guys. A 71 total QBR last year as a rookie. So the sky's the ceiling this year. We're expecting big things. And I think his ability to play so calm and so patient and so poised last year is going to be taken to another level. And I think that's the thing that has everyone in Washington excited. You juxtapose that to what's going on in Pittsburgh, where they have no idea who their quarterback is and everything's in disarray. Everything in Washington is in place, and now the enthusiasm and the excitement is starting to build there because they know as long as he stays healthy and everybody around him does their part, he makes that next jump. We're not just talking about a team that can get into the playoffs. You're talking about a team that could have one of the elite quarterbacks in the National Football League. And when you have one of those guys, that gives you an opportunity to win a championship. That's the difference when you have a quarterback that can do what he did as a rookie. And now the game actually slows down his second year. I'm excited to watch him because I know how it was for me. My rookie year to my second year, it was like reading English to Chinese. Like, I understood it. I didn't have to get a translator. I knew exactly what was going on, and I can't wait to watch this young man.
Yeah, sign of the times, Bug. We're talking about Washington being a model NFL franchise. You're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, not comparing to the Commanders. This is the type of universe that we're now living in. Whoever thought that the Commanders would be an example for all, but it just goes to show you how much change has happened in Washington under new ownership, new coaching, new front office, and the quarterback, Jayden Daniels.
It really is amazing. Imagine hearing that cut 2 years ago. You'd have been like, what? How? Well, here we are. I'm very pleased to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast ESPN NFL senior writer and prognosticator Mike Clay. His 2025 NFL projection guide is a must-read if you are an NFL fan and or play fantasy football and or bet on the NFL. And in that 2025 NFL projection guide has Jayden Daniels as the number one fantasy football quarterback in the NFL for this coming season. Yes, number one. Mike also has some notable position group rankings for the Commanders. He has them as having the number 6 quarterback unit in the NFL, the number 9 receiver unit in the NFL, and the number 1 off-ball linebacker unit in the NFL, but also the worst edge rusher unit in the NFL and the next to last safety unit in the NFL. Mike's 2025 NFL projection guide is free, and a link for it can be found in his pinned post on X at x.com/Mike Clay NFL. You can follow Mike on X at Mike Clay NFL. Mike, good to talk to you. How are you?
I'm pretty good, and I appreciate that introduction because Washington fans not super thrilled with me despite the love for some of those units because the NFC's tough, as I'm sure we'll talk about, and so the win total projection not exactly where fans think it should be. So we'll see how it turns out, but the bottom line is they do have some star power and they're on the way up, which is a good thing.
I hear you. Well, you have to understand, we as a fan base are a damaged group with all that we've been through over the last 30 plus years. For the uninitiated, how do you do what you do? How do you go about ranking and projecting stats for every offensive and defensive unit in the NFL? That is quite the daunting task.
Oh, it sure is. It's a year-round project, and sometimes people, I'll put out initial projections like early in the offseason, before free agency, then after free agency, during the draft, and people are often confused why I bother doing that when there's so much still to learn. But the fact is, you have to start somewhere, right? And when you're projecting, kick returners and punters and passes defensed on defense, everything, you have to do it year-round. So that's what I do. I'm always on it as soon as the season ends. In fact, during the playoffs, frankly, I start working on the next year, I'll dive into, I'll pick a day and work on punters, and go through each thing. And obviously I'm keeping tabs on the transaction wire every day. I'm monitoring coaching changes. I'm following league trends, player movement. Beat reporter reports are obviously huge. I move the needle on certain things every single day. It could be a report that, Clint Kubiak's going to use the fullback this year in the passing game a little bit. That affects things. That takes away a target or two from other players. So the goal of these is not to be controversial. It's to give people a baseline to work off on, to see what a roster looks like and how, targets, carries, dropbacks could be distributed.
Your projected stats for players, how do you come up with those numbers? Computer simulations, analytics? What is your methodology?
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast just on that, but it's a bunch of different ways. Certainly there's a lot of back end research to find the rate stats, right? So on the defensive side of the ball, for example, sack rates or pressure rates, tackle rates. I'm studying league trends, team trends, player trends, all that kind of stuff, and then you have to determine playing time, right? So I'm looking at a player's history to see how often they're generally on the field, and then their competition for snaps. Some players play a lot because the team doesn't have a better option, and other guys, it's the opposite. So, if we're talking like Wagner and Luvu, for example, we know they're 98% snap players, something like that. So they're going to have pretty high projections. And then other positions like tackle, edge, those guys rotate a little bit more. So it's just a lot of studying. And I do study the coordinators and figure out how they generally deploy players. And does this team usually use 3 safety looks and then fewer off-ball linebacker snaps, those kind of things. So it's just an evolving process. And again, it's all those factors I mentioned earlier, whether it's studying the trends and also following beat reporter reports, or talking to someone like you who follows the team so closely and might say, hey, you don't have this guy projected very high. In camp the other day, he was running with the starters. Take a look at that. I learned from all those kind of things, and I'm constantly tweaking these things every single day.
For how long have you been doing NFL projecting and prognosticating?
I've been at ESPN about 9 years, so a little longer than that. I've been doing projections for almost 15 years. I just constantly, the goal is always to just continue to evolve and improve the process a little bit each year.
Would you say that doing NFL projections has gotten easier or harder over the years?
I would say when I first started doing it, offenses were a little bit more condensed. They kind of spread the ball around a little bit more. It used to be like if you had a star player, that guy was going to get the rock a lot. The offenses moved a little slower. So in that regard, it was a little easier. However, it's also, I've been doing it a long time, so that helps me, keep kind of level headed. It's easy sometimes to be like, man, that player is really good. I have to give him a high projection. He was drafted in the second round. There's no way he's not going to see a ton of targets. And then you realize, well, actually, a lot of like second and third rounders don't perform at a high level. We know there's exceptions. It's easy to point to like a Mike Evans, but it's also easy to point to all of them, the 80% who weren't very good as rookies and kind of made the leap in year 2 or 3. So, it's experience has definitely helped a lot. But it's obviously coordinators, play callers, it's head coaches are getting more creative than ever, which makes it a little trickier.
All right. So you mentioned your underwhelming projected win total for the Commanders in the 2025 regular season, 8.7. What's your outlook for the team this coming season?
Yeah, so I think they're a playoff team. I think the problem is, I'm gonna annoy someone because the NFC is so good. There's a lot of teams that can have a case for a division title and or a wild card. So, I have them kind of battling with teams like, Minnesota, Green Bay, perhaps Chicago for a wild card spot. I mean, maybe they give the Eagles a run for their money. I definitely think it's possible. The Eagles, everything went right last year. Certainly they could have some injuries this year. The defense isn't quite as good as last year, had some notable losses in the offseason. So maybe they take a little bit of a step back. But, I think the offense is going to be outstanding. As you mentioned, I love Jayden Daniels. Getting Tunsil left tackle is obviously huge. But the concern for me, the reason I'm not as high and feel like they're just a cemented playoff team is the defense. I think there's still some concerns on that side of the ball. And I think, Dan Quinn is, Joe Witt, they're going to have their hands full getting the most out of this unit. It's possible. We've seen them do that before. So it could happen, but that's the reason I'm not as high on them. But again, I still have them as a wild card team in the NFC.
Would you label the Commanders this coming season as a Super Bowl contender, as one of the, say, top 3 or 4 teams in the NFC, or would you not go that far?
I won't go quite that far, but that's a weird thing to say for a team that went as far as they did last year with a rookie quarterback. So, sometimes you get a little variance on your side, and that helps. I mean, look at the team they beat in the playoffs. Detroit was, speaking of injuries and bad luck, Detroit had no defense. Their whole team was hurt on that side of the ball, and they couldn't stop Washington in that game, as you know well. So, some things go right for you, some things go wrong. Things went well for them last year. It wouldn't surprise me if they're, one win in the playoffs, 0 win in the playoffs, something like that, just because the concerns with the defense. But at the end of the day, when you have a superstar quarterback, like I think Jayden Daniels is, you're a contender. It's really that simple. He's on that short list now of superstars, aspiring superstars. And if he proves the real deal and is the next, I know they're not the exact same player, but the next essentially Lamar Jackson, the guy that's the two-way player, Josh Allen, like the two-way player who's a superstar contributor and just, regardless of the supporting cast, can carry his team that far. If he's that guy, and it looks like he is, then they're going to be a contender every year.
We're talking Commanders with ESPN NFL senior writer and prognosticator Mike Clay. So with the Commanders, Jayden Daniels, you have him as the number one fantasy football quarterback in the NFL for this coming season. Why is that?
Yeah, so I think he showed it last year with the high level of play. And, you mentioned fantasy football. A big part of that is running ability. That's why Jayden was, granted, he played well, but, he did so much with his legs that it just generates a ton of fantasy production. And he finished fifth in fantasy points last year. So no doubt about it. You put him there. And by the way, you can put these guys in any order: Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jayden Daniels, Jalen Hurts. I think any of those four guys could be number one. You take them in any order. Pick your favorite team, favorite player, whatever it is. They're all so close. And again, I don't think we're going to see Jayden run less. So as long as he keeps running the ball, that's going to help. Not to mention, by the way, the Cliff Kingsbury offense that moves so fast. I talked about this last season. They're going to move the ball. It's going to be a high paced offense, and that's going to add plays and dropbacks and carry opportunities, and that helps the whole offense.
Your projected stats for Jayden Daniels in the 2025 regular season: 15 games, 3,720 passing yards, completion percentage of 66.4, yards per pass attempt of 7.35, 23 touchdown passes versus 11 interceptions, 129 carries for 711 yards, and 6 touchdowns. What stands out to you from those projections?
Yeah, so first of all, that's a 15-game projection. We're actually making a change right now. You're going to see 17-game projections in there shortly. But I think that what you're seeing there is a slight step forward in efficiency from last year, which is often how I project second-year quarterbacks. You usually see a leap forward in year two. Of course, he was already very efficient last year. His numbers were very good, so it's mild. But you're still seeing similar rushing production on a per-game basis. Pass attempts, I suspect, will be nice and high as well, again, because of the high volume Cliff Kingsbury offense. But I like a lot. I think there's reason to believe that he's going to make a little bit of a step forward this season. And again, I only say a little bit because he was already so good last year. It's hard to improve on elite numbers, and that's what we saw from him last year.
Your projected stats for receiver Deebo Samuel Sr. in the 2025 regular season: 15 games, 58 receptions for 819 yards and 4 touchdowns on 90 targets, 26 carries for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Would this qualify as a bounce-back season for Samuel off a down 2024 season with the San Francisco 49ers?
Yeah, I think there's reason for optimism here. I think on a per-game basis, he's going to be a factor here. And certainly, we were talking fantasy, certainly could be fantasy relevant. The key really with him is durability. Is he going to hold up? He's never played a full season in his career, so you kind of have to expect a couple missed games. But, you don't trade for him to just kind of chill out on the sideline. This guy's going to be a factor, and they need those secondary weapons for Jayden Daniels. They were a little, their depth at the skill positions was kind of underwhelming last year, and it just adds to how impressive Daniels was. You had Terry McLaurin, but you're getting the most out of Zach Ertz, who the year before wasn't even on a roster at the end of the season, or on a 53-man roster, and then you turn him into a highly productive pass catcher. And then those depth receivers, again, those were guys, as were kind of just hanging around. Diami Brown had not really done much at the pro level at that point. He was kind of just the secondary target. He was making plays in this offense. So you bring in Deebo, and obviously you bring back Noah Brown, Luke McCaffrey in year two, Jalen Lane, the rookie, Sinnott, entering his second year. I just really like the supporting cast around him, and we know that Deebo is going to be a big part of that.
You, for a second consecutive year, have the Commanders as having the number one off-ball linebacker unit in the NFL. The team this past March 7th announced having re-signed linebacker Bobby Wagner, who had been set to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason. The 2025 season will be his age 35 season. He and Frankie Louvu this past season gave Washington its best linebacker duo in years, but at some point, Wagner figures to fall off, but of course, that has not happened yet. You being in the business of projecting the NFL know that for so many NFL players, when it goes quickly. How can we know? Is there any way to know when the drop-off for Wagner will happen?
Yeah, I think actually more often than not, it just comes out of nowhere. It's not necessarily an age thing. I mean, it becomes more likely as you get older, but it's not like, well, he's 33, so he's fine. He's 34, he's not fine. It just happens. And obviously he turns 35 here this summer. But he played at such a high level last year that that's my expectation this year as well. And obviously having Luvu there is massive. It's funny. It's very rare for fan bases to be like, you're actually too high on this group. Like 95% of the time, fans are like, you're too low on us. Every team thinks they have a great team. But actually last year I was getting pushback on that. They're like, that's, they're good. They're not that good though. They're not the best linebacker group in the league. And I was like, I beg to differ. I mean, not only Luvu's so underrated, I think that's part of it. He's a really good player. We know Wagner's a star, but they also play every down. What they both play 98, 99% of the snaps last year, which is just massive for guys that are that talented. So, I really love that group. And even if Wagner has a little bit of a step back this year at 35, I still think he'll be formidable along with Luvu.
The two worst units on the Commanders per your rankings are the edge defender and safety units. So worst edge rusher unit in the NFL, next to last safety unit in the NFL. If I told you that one of those units ends up being surprisingly good, which one is it?
Oh, interesting. I should ask you that question. I think that I don't know that I have a great answer just because they didn't add a player I think is like they didn't add like a first or second round pick to either of those groups. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of journeymen in these units. You brought in some new guys at the edge position. Obviously, Will Harris at safety to compete, but it's a lot of old faces. I mean, maybe Martin at safety makes a little bit of a leap forward. He was okay last year, but I don't know if they, and that's kind of my concern, right? I don't know that they brought in a young, high pedigree player or a star player that's really going to move the needle. But, I should ask you that question. What do you think?
I would say safety. There's a lot of optimism with Quan Martin, who played much of last season with two separated shoulders. And the Commanders are high on Will Harris, who they signed in March as an unrestricted free agent. But the edge defender thing is interesting. The team clearly likes what it has at edge defender a lot more than most people on the outside like what the team has at edge defender. And of course, there are ways to manufacture pass rush. So just from a contrarian standpoint, I wonder if the team might end up being better at edge defender than most people anticipated. We'll see. ESPN NFL senior writer and prognosticator Mike Clay. Mike, thanks. Have a great weekend.
Thanks a lot. You too.
All right. Hey, congratulations to a good friend of this podcast, Chris Nace, lead attorney for the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. Chris has been named a 2025 Law Dragon 500 leading plaintiff consumer lawyer. His dedication to justice and client advocacy continues to make a real impact. Also, congrats to Samantha Peters of the Nace Law Group. She was recently elected to the Board of Governors of the Trial Lawyers Association of Metropolitan Washington, D.C. Founded in 1979, the Nace Law Group is a Washington, D.C.-based family law firm that handles medical malpractice, personal injury, birth injury, legal malpractice, and consumer protection cases, offering aggressive advocacy for victims in Washington, D.C. and West Virginia. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers, and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group is outstanding. Chris Nace and the rest of the team do excellent work. They'll fight for you and your family. They can help you and your family make difficult decisions. So the Nace Law Group has recovered millions of dollars for the sick and injured. If you have a case, contact the Nace Law Group. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com. And make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. So we now are 62 games into the Nationals' 2025 regular season, 62 games down, 100 games to go, and the Nats are 29-33 with a run differential of minus 46. Thursday evening, a 7-1 loss to the Chicago Cubs at Nationals Park to lose 2 out of 3 games in the series. The Cubs for this regular season now are a National League best 39-23 with a Major League best run differential of plus 106. The Cubs are one of the best teams in the majors. So the Nats on Thursday evening, just 1 run, 8 hits, just 1 walk, 3 for 9 with runners in scoring position. The 8 hits were 3 doubles and 5 singles. An unlucky game for James Wood. He is the Nats starting left fielder and number 3 batter, went 0 for 4, but with exit velocities per StatCast of 111.5 miles per hour, 104.2 miles per hour, 103 miles per hour, and 97.5 miles per hour. He was hitting balls super hard, but was hitting them to the wrong spots. Luis Garcia Jr., he is the Nats starting second baseman and number 8 batter, went 2 for 4 with a double and an RBI single, which came with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th to prevent a shutout. C.J. Abrams, who has been slumping, he is the Nats starting shortstop and number 1 batter, went 2 for 4 with a double and a single, so good to see him have 2 hits, but he had some rough moments. Abrams in the bottom of the first had a leadoff single to right field despite having been down in the count at 1.12, but he was thrown out in an attempt to stretch the single into a double as he came off the second base bag off sliding into it. And Abrams in the bottom of the 7th with the bases loaded, 2 outs, and the Nats down 5-0, struck out looking. And I mentioned Abrams being thrown out in an attempt to stretch a single into a double. Robert Hassel III, he is the Nats starting center fielder and number 9 batter, went 2 for 4 with 2 singles. Hassel in the bottom of the 3rd had a went out opposite field single into left field, but he was thrown out in an attempt to stretch the single into a double. Some bad outs by the Nats on the base paths in this game. The Nats starting pitcher in this 7-1 loss to the Cubs on Thursday evening was Jake Irvin. He allowed 3 runs in 5 innings. He gave up 8 hits, which were a home run, 2 doubles, and 5 singles. He issued 2 walks. He recorded 3 strikeouts. He threw a lot of pitches, did throw a lot of strikes, 94 pitches, 60 strikes, 34 balls. But Irvin had another bad first inning. Irvin in the top of the first sandwiched swinging strikeouts of Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki around a went-out double by Kyle Tucker to the right center field gap, and then gave up a 2-out, 2-run homer by Pete Crow Armstrong on a bomb to center field for a 2-0 Cubs lead. The homer went a projected 412 feet per StatCast. You look at Jake Irvin now for this regular season, 13 starts, ERA of 4.02, whip of 1.23, a first inning ERA of 9.75. He and Mitchell Parker, 2 Nats starting pitchers who have really struggled in first innings this season. Parker's first inning ERA for this regular season is 10.50. And the Nats bullpen in this 7-1 loss to the Cubs on Thursday evening was not good. 4 Nats relievers combined to allow 4 runs in 4 innings. Jackson Rutledge, he allowed 2 runs in the top of the 6th, during which he gave up a 2-run homer by Ian Happ to right field for a 5-0 Cubs lead. Zach Brixey tossed a scoreless top of the 7th. Andrew Chafin tossed a scoreless and hitless top of the 8th, but Eduardo Salazar in the top of the 9th allowed 2 runs on a walk and 3 singles. The Cubs are a really good offensive team. They in this game totaled 7 runs, 15 hits, and 4 walks. And the Nats were sloppy in this game. I mentioned the mistakes on the base pass. Also for the Nats in this game, some defensive plays that could have been made but were not, and that especially bothered Nats manager Davey Martinez during his postgame press conference on Thursday night. Here was what Martinez had to say, and then you'll hear a follow-up exchange.
Well, the defense is the running into a few outs didn't bother me a bit. I mean, 2 good plays, 2 good throws. The throws offline were both safe. They ran hard out of the box. I mean, so, but the defense, a couple plays that we should have made that we didn't make. So, but hey, I like the way we swung the bats though. I mean, we hit some balls really hard today. Just have nothing to show for it.
It seems like you guys, as a whole, have taken a minor step back defensively over the last month. Why do you think that is?
We just got to get ready, the first step. I know it's starting to get a little warmer now, but we got to get ready to catch the ball. And we got to make plays. I always talk about, the 3 things that got to be constants for us to compete. Defense is one of them. We got to play good defense.
Yeah, as we have discussed, the Nats are one of the worst defensive teams in the majors this season. Next up for the Nats is a 3-game series against the Texas Rangers at Nationals Park. Game 1, Friday evening at 6:45, Michael Soroka will be the Nats starting pitcher. The Rangers starting pitcher will be ex-Nat Patrick Corbin, who is having a good season. Believe it or not, Patrick Corbin for this regular season, 10 starts, ERA of 3.71, whip of 1.26. Game 2, Saturday afternoon at 4:05. Mitchell Parker will be the Nats starting pitcher. The Rangers starting pitcher will be Jacob deGrom. And Game 3, Sunday afternoon at 1:35. Trevor Williams will be the Nats starting pitcher. Well, the hottest team in MLB is the Orioles. What this means, who knows? Where this is going, who knows? But the O's, off their atrocious start to MLB's 2025 regular season, now are playing well. Thursday, a 4-3 win at the Seattle Mariners to complete a 3-game sweep as the O's, again, Joe Angel, were in the win column.
And the Orioles, again, in the win column.
Yeah, Joe, the win column. The O's now have won 6 consecutive games and 9 of the team's last 11 games. The overall record is 25-36, third worst record in the American League. But the Orioles' record under interim manager Tony Mansolino now is 10-8. Whether it is a causation or correlation, the O's under Mansolino have been a lot better than they were under manager Brandon Hyde this season. The O's in this 4-3 win at the Mariners on Thursday totaled 4 runs on just 6 hits, which were 2 home runs, a double, and 3 singles. The O's worked 2 walks and went 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position. The homers came in back-to-back fashion in a 3-run 6. Adley Rutschman, he is the Orioles starting DH and number 2 batter, went 3 for 4 with a 2-run homer and 2 singles. He and the Orioles 3-run 6 had a 2-run homer to right field on an 0-2 pitch to tie the game at 3. Rutschman had a very good series, 7 for 13 with 2 home runs and 5 singles. And Gunnar Henderson, he is the Orioles starting shortstop and number 3 batter, went 1 for 4 with a solo homer. He and the Orioles 3-run 6 had a solo homer to right field for a 4-3 Orioles lead. The O's desperately need Rutschman and Henderson to be better. Good to see each guy homer on Thursday. Here was Tony Mansolino during his postgame session with reporters on Thursday evening on Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson.
Adley's looked really good here for a while. We keep talking about it. Go back to Anaheim series minus a couple games against the White Sox. So he's really trending in the direction that we saw today. So, he hammered that ball to center field earlier in the game as well. Hit the ball hard as a right-handed hitter later in the game. So it's starting to kind of all come together. I think he's catching great too. So good. Gunnar, to me, right now, Gunnar is playing of the Gold Glove variety shortstop for me. He's been really good since the first couple weeks of when he came back. It's funny, you look up at the scoreboard and kind of where he's at with his numbers, and, there's a feeling of, like, what's wrong with God? But then as it kind of goes on and you look up, like, he's actually doing just fine. He's doing great. He's probably about 2 weeks away from kind of putting himself in the MVP kind of ballot area. So he's doing fine. He's going to get going. It reminds me a little bit of 23 with him, a little bit of a slower April, May, and he's starting to heat up a little bit just like then.
Yes, he is. More good pitching for the O's. That has been the key to the recent winning. The pitching has been so much better. Starting pitcher Zach Eflin, he on Thursday allowed 3 runs in 6 innings with 7 strikeouts versus no walks. He gave up 8 hits, which were a home run, 2 doubles, and 5 singles, but he threw a lot of strikes, 88 pitches, 61 strikes versus just 27 balls, and 3 Orioles relievers on Thursday combined for 3 scoreless innings with 5 strikeouts. Keegan Aiken tossed a perfect bottom of the 7th. Andrew Kittredge tossed a perfect bottom of the 8th. with 2 strikeouts, and Brian Baker tossed a scoreless bottom of the 9th with 2 swinging strikeouts for the save of closer Felix Bautista, having pitched in 4 of the previous 6 days. Orioles relievers in this 3-game sweep at the Mariners combined for 8 2/3 scoreless innings. We, during Tony Mansolino's post-game session with reporters on Thursday evening, had this exchange between O's insider Rich Dubroff of BaltimoreBaseball.com and Mansolino.
When you took over a few weeks ago, you said that you wanted to see, you guys knock a bunch of games, get within maybe 10 games of 500, and all of a sudden you're 11 games under 500. Are you starting to feel that there is something going on?
I don't feel like we've ever not felt that. As crazy as it sounds, even when we got to 18 games or whatever, I think just because of the point of the calendar where we're at so early in the year, there's hope, right? And you kind of need one of these streaks to, maybe solidify that a little bit. But yeah, you roll off 6 in a row and you come into Seattle and beat a heck of a team, a first place team. Just a little bit more hope, which we'll definitely take.
All right, good times for the O's right now. Next up for the O's is the 3-game series at the American League West Worst Athletics at Sutter Health Park in West Sacramento, California. Remember, no longer are they the Oakland Athletics, now just the Athletics playing home games this season in West Sacramento. Game 1 Friday night at 10:05, Dean Kramer will be the Orioles starting pitcher. Game 2 Saturday night at 10:05, Charlie Morton will be the Orioles starting pitcher. Game 3 Sunday afternoon at 4:05, Tomoyuki Sagano will be the Orioles starting pitcher. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Monday show, episode 1090. We'll have a lot for you on the Commanders. Also on Monday's show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats this weekend have a 3-game series against the Texas Rangers at Nationals Park. The O's this weekend have a 3-game series at the American League West Worst Athletics at Sutter Health Park in West Sacramento, California. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday.
Sign of the times, Boog. We're talking about Washington being a model NFL franchise.